Following is a speech by Mr. E.K Gaylord given in February 1973 at a Friday forum of the Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce for the Oklahoma Press Association.
Mr. Gaylord came to Oklahoma City, and on February 6, 1903, he and two others bought 45% of the stock of the Daily Oklahoman. Mr. Gaylord borrowed money in part to finance his share of the purchase price. The newspaper was then 8 years old. The trio formed the Oklahoma Publishing Company, and Mr. Gaylord served the paper as its business manager. From the beginning, Mr. Gaylord and his paper were active in promoting the city and the state. He was a leader in the drive to acquire statehood for Oklahoma, and later to move the state's new capital from Guthrie to Oklahoma City. In 1911, he started a farm paper known as the Oklahoma Farmer Stockman. The Farmer Stockman publishes editions for Texas and Kansas as well as Oklahoma. It has total circulation of about 400,000 monthly. However, Mr. Gaylord just sold interest in this paper. In 1915, Mr. Gaylord was elected president of the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce and has served as a director since that time. In 1916, the Oklahoma Publishing Company bought the Oklahoma City Times, an evening paper, for $30,000. Mr. Gaylord became president of the Oklahoma Publishing Company in 1918 and continues as president as well as editor and publisher of the Daily Oklahoman and the Oklahoma City Times. The Daily Oklahoman now enjoys a circulation of 198,624. The Times, 100,268. Those right up to date? I bet he knows. And the Sunday Oklahoman, 300,008, 017. Mr. Gaylord served 9 years as a director of the Associated Press and has been a member of the American Newspaper Publishers Association for more than 60 years. He's also served as president of the Southern Newspaper Publishers Association. On his 90th birthday, March 5, 1963, his newspaper became the first in the world to print its entire edition from computer-justified type. And that's a long way from the days of setting type by hand. It's with great pleasure that I'll be allowed to make this presentation on behalf of the entire membership of the Oklahoma Press Association for deep gratitude and appreciation to Mr. E.K Gaylord on the eve of his 100th birthday and the eve of the 70th anniversary of the Oklahoma Publishing Company. Before giving you this memento of our affection and friendship, Mr. Gaylord, let me read the inscription. E.K Gaylord, dedication to his city and state, unflinching integrity and determined effort to serve have been the trademarks of the man and his newspapers. Mr. Gaylord.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm convinced now that I'm more noted for my longevity than for anything else I may have accomplished. But I was very glad that Mr. Trimble mentioned some of the outstanding men and women who have worked for the Oklahoma Publishing Company and largely helped in establishing its reputation. I'm also very proud of the fact that the newspaper publishers in other cities, the smaller cities and towns of this state, compare very favorably with those in any other state in the country. And I think it's a great asset to this state to have dedicated publishers who strive for honesty in government and for progress in not only financial matters but in the quality of life in this state. It's rather embarrassing perhaps to talk about yourself and your company, but perhaps there are a few things that would interest you. And regarding my age, I know when I was 65, the anticipation of my life would be less than 85. And when I was 80, the anticipated length of life was not as much as 90. And when I was 90, it was not as much as 100. Well, that just shows that statistics are not always reliable. For instance, you have noted by many authorities that the most dangerous place in the home is the bathtub. But the statistics disprove that, because they show in this country and all civilized countries that more people die in bed than anywhere else. So if you will pardon me, a few sentences, a few paragraphs about our company and why and how I happened to come here. I'm deeply appreciative of your action in honoring me because of my longevity and because of my 70 years as a newspaper publisher in Oklahoma City. I note that antiques are becoming very valuable, and I was recently cataloged in the Oklahoma Heritage House along with the other antiques. I never had a goal of reaching 100, but always desired to continue to be helpful in all the problems which continually confront our city, our state, and nation, and the people who come within the range of my activities. Obviously, I cannot even mention many of the outstanding events in the growth of Oklahoma City and the state during the past 70 years. I will tell you how and why I came to Oklahoma Territory in December 1902. In St. Louis, I read a brief interview with Carter Harrison, mayor of Chicago, who said that in returning from Texas on the Santa Fe Railroad, he saw in Oklahoma Territory fields white with cotton for harvest, and that the territory territory between Kansas and Texas could raise the crops of the South and of the North. He said someday it would become a state and develop a population similar to that of Kansas, and if he were a young man, he would go there to locate. I was tremendously thrilled and intrigued because I wanted to locate permanently in a pioneer location with a future. Immediately, I came to Oklahoma City, walked several times around the business district, which is confined to Main Street and Grand Avenue, and walked as far as there were houses north, south, east, and west. And what is now Capitol Hill, there was a little one-way wooden bridge, and there were possibly 15 frame shacks or cabins on the other side of the river. The last house north was the Dewey Cottage at 12th and Harvey. I then went to see a banker, asked him who owned the Oklahoman and the Times. He told me that two brothers named Brown owned the Times and Roy Stafford owned the Oklahoman. I asked if they were honest men to deal with. He hesitated a little and then said, why, yes, he thought they were, which reminded me of Lincoln's definition that they were tolerably honest. I asked him which would be the better paper to buy into, and he emphatically said, it won't make a damn bit of difference which one you buy. Neither one of them is worth the hoop in hell. The Browns were not interested in any deal, but Mr. Stafford, who was having to pay cash in advance for each roll of newsprint, was quite interested in a newspaper man with experience in larger cities and with some cash to finance improvements. The Oklahoman was in a building 25 by 60 feet and was the dirtiest, most cluttered up printing plant I'd ever seen. The ceiling was festooned with cobwebs hanging down from a foot to possibly 15 inches and black as your hat. That was the ink mist, I suppose. The Oklahoman was printed on a little flatbed press, which took 4 or 5 hours to produce 3,500 copies. There was a job press and 2 linotypes, and the floor in the composing room was almost knee-deep in spoils and job cuttings. Eventually, we made a deal, and I became secretary, treasurer, and business manager as we incorporated the Oklahoma Publishing Company. I realized I was not acquiring an interest in a newspaper so much as I was obtaining the opportunity to join with other pioneers in building a city, a territory, and eventually a state. I took charge on January 27th, 1903, and my first activity was to sweep all the ceiling before sweeping the floor. I then sold the job printing plant within 30 days and contracted for a building to be leased at the corner of California and Robinson with 2 stories and a full basement and more than 5 times the area of Mr. Stafford's plant. In October, or 10 months later, we moved in with more linotypes and modern stereotyping machinery and with a 16-page Goss color deck press. Oklahoma City began to boom and we joined the campaign to obtain statehood. We advocated single statehood or a merger with Indian Territory, but many people, especially in Indian Territory, wanted 2 states. 4 years and 10 months after my arrival, the state of Oklahoma was formed. From 1903 to 1910 were boom years. A special census was taken, ordered by Teddy Roosevelt, in June 1907 to see whether the state had enough population to warrant statehood. And Oklahoma City had a population of over 32,000. 2 years and 8 months later, the regular census of 1910 showed a population of 64,205, a 100% gain. Every citizen was an enthusiastic booster. These pioneers had little money and few tools. What was vastly more important, they had courage, a spirit of adventure, faith in the future, and reliance in themselves. They never for a moment doubted they were going to lay the foundation of a great new state and a new metropolis. Packing plants were acquired in 1909 and 1911. The capital was moved from Guthrie in 1911. It is not possible even to enumerate the great activities and changes which occurred in later years. I will mention, though, that we removed the Rock Island tracks from the center of the city, which went right through here, by the way, and the Frisco tracks from the center of the city, and acquired the 20 acres, which is now the Civic Center, from the Frisco and the Rock Island in 1930. The Oklahoman and Times, which we purchased in 1916, have had a very active part in not only the industrial and commercial growth of the city and state, but constantly supported all educational, cultural, and religious activities which have been outstanding goals of the people of the city and state. The Oklahoma Publishing Company has been at the forefront in developing new and modern and scientific methods of printing and publishing. And the Oklahoman was the first newspaper in the world to produce an entire edition with computerized type. This achievement resulted in a double-page spread in the London Times with my picture at the computer. And it brought many visitors to our plant from countries all around the world. Thanks to Bob Spahn, our production manager, we're always up to date in mechanical operations. Within the next 10 years or less, I look for still more scientific improvements, and in most modern plants, there will be no printers or composing rooms, but there will be more engravers and photographers. Without further imposing on your time, I again want to thank you for honoring me and for my age and my long experience in the newspaper business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaylord. This gentleman never ceases to amaze me, in more ways than one. With your indulgence, I'd like to read to you a telegram just received. Mr. E.K. Gaylord, when you became a director of Southwest Research Institute in 1949, we were a small organization and science wasn't news. Through your paper and personal efforts, you increased the awareness of science and technology of everyone. In addition, your advice did much to further the growth of the Institute with its staff of 1,200 people working worldwide. The board and the staff of the Southwest Research Institute joins the Oklahoma Press Association in honoring you on the eve of your 100th birthday. Signed, Maurice Akers, Chairman of the Board, Martin Golan, President, Southwest Research Institute. Three months ago, with the opening of the new chamber offices and the opening of the new Myriad Convention Center, a song was written for Oklahoma City. This song is entitled Growing with Pride, Growing with Love. The music and words are by Oklahoma Cityan David Barnes. It tells about the pride Oklahoma Cityans have for their city. This song has been recorded by lovely Linda Wright. Miss Wright is here today to sing the song for us, and it is dedicated to Mr. E.K. Gaylord. Linda, you're on.
Following is an interview with Dr. Hugo McCord of the Bible Department of Oklahoma Christian College, made by Teresa Brewer.
This is an interview with Dr. Hugo McCord on March 17, 1975. My name is Teresa Brewer, and it's at Oklahoma Christian College. Dr. McCord, can you tell me a few things, like when you were born and where?
Born in Mississippi in 1911, and then moved up to Missouri. Went to school in Freed-Hardeman at Henderson, Tennessee, and the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana for a BA in speech, and was a student then at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. Then at the Episcopalian Seminary in Alexandria, Virginia. Then at the Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. At the University of Tulsa, and at the New Orleans Seminary in New Orleans, Louisiana. So that's the extent of the school.
Okay. What degrees do you hold?
The BA in speech, the master's degree in Greek New Testament, the BD degree in New Testament, and the TH degree in the Old Testament.
Dr. McCord, can you tell us how you became associated with Oklahoma Christian?
Yes, to me it's so interesting. I was finishing the BD degree at Louisville, Kentucky, and read about the establishment of Central Christian College out in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And for many years I'd known the founding president, L.R. Wilson. I'd worked with him in Florida, There he established a Christian school. And now he had gone to Oklahoma and was the founding president of another school, thus the first man in the Brotherhood to be the founding president of 2 of our colleges. I had great esteem for L.R. Wilson. He and I both had been graduates of Freed-Hardeman College. And when I was finishing up the B.D. at Louisville, I had a letter from Brother Wilson asking me to come out to Central Christian and teach. At the same time, I had a letter from H.A. Dixon, the president of Freed-Hardeman College, asking me to come there and teach. And so I was in a quandary. I loved my alma mater, Freed-Hardeman. I also loved the idea of starting and helping in a new school out west. And I had a teenage son as well as a young daughter. So my wife and I just decided we'll leave it up to the son to decide whether he wanted to move from Louisville, Kentucky down to Henderson, Tennessee, or move from Louisville out to Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Well, he said the Indians are out in Oklahoma. Let's go to Oklahoma. So that decided it.
Okay. Can you tell about your activities at Central Christian?
Well, it was a thrilling experience to me. Brother Wilson was so cooperative, and there was James Baird, and there was Harold Fletcher, and so many others I got acquainted with. And to see these freshman students come in, eyes bright, wanting to learn, and good kids who wanted to improve their lives, and knew that there was something in a Christian college that they couldn't get in state schools, and willing to pay more financially to get it. It was encouraging to a teacher to work with these young people. And so, in that old mansion at Bartlesville, a house made for a residence, not for a school, but it served a good purpose, and there were many fine lessons taught within the walls of that old mansion at Bartlesville, an all-man's millionaire home.
You mentioned the mansion. Can you tell us some more about what it was like, what it looked like, the number of rooms and things like that?
Oh, I would guess at 20 rooms, much ornamentation, iron grill work. Then there was marble that had been imported from Italy. And on one occasion, out in the patio where there was a beautiful marble decoration, some of the boys on Halloween tried to move it just for a prank, and they broke it.
Oh.
And so the prank turned into grief, something that couldn't be repaired. But it was a millionaire's home is what it was. And he spared no expense in having everything. The draperies, the rugs, were all there from the days that he and his wife lived back. Some of them were getting pretty old. But you could still tell that they were of rich quality when they were recently bought. And so it was quite an experience to go to school and to teach in the old mansion.
How did the Christian college there come to be in Bartlesville?
There were a group of Christian men in various parts of Oklahoma that decided back in the late 40s that there ought to be a Christian college in this area. But there were a lot of young people that would not go as far as Searcy, Arkansas, or as far as Abilene, and that there ought to be a Christian college in this area. And so they raised some money to make some plans to that end. And up at Pryor, Oklahoma, there was some housing property being sold by the government. And so at first they thought, well, we'll buy that at a good bargain and start the school there. Some didn't want to because it was mostly just frame building. And their counsel prevailed not to do it. And they were able to buy this large mansion at Bartlesville at a very low market value. And so it turned out to be an excellent start for the school. It would have been tragic if the school had stayed in Bartlesville, but it was a great start for it.
Could you tell us some of the positions you held while you were at Central Christian?
Well, I was the freshman instructor in Bible and taught the Greek class there also. Then, when L.R. Wilson resigned and James Obed became the president, he was kind to ask me to serve as his vice president. And that was an interesting experience, although I'm not a professional teacher. But I did work with him in that, but he did all the detail, the legwork. But it served a good purpose for me to know James Obey. For I saw him in various roles. And he came in one day and said, "What would you think if I offered my resignation if we could get George Benson of Harding to be president of both schools at the same time? That he can raise more money faster than I can." I said, "James, is someone trying to put the skids under you? Pull the rug one?" He said, "No." He just said, "I think that the school would prosper faster with a man of his financial caliber to raise money for the school." Well, I said, if that's all there is to it, I'd be for it, because there'd just be two of you out working to raise money to keep me on the campus so I could work with these boys and girls. I said, "What do you think is best?" So I learned, as that story, there's a whole lot to it, but in brief it's this, that James Baird was willing to take a back seat, to be demoted, to resign, if it would help the school. George Benson came as our chancellor and his superior executive officer, but he looked up to James Baird, and he still does. James Baird showed great spiritual strength.
Were there any other notable personalities on the campus that you could mention?
No, I don't know of any notable personalities. All of us were so pleased that Harold Fletcher has stayed on and on, and he has done something influential in young people. A man who stands for quality in education and nothing.
Elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, comparatively it's a small town, and statistics have proved that colleges do a lot better in metropolitan areas. Then the means of conveyance of getting into Bartlesville were limited, difficult to get into town. And the rapid growth of the school and numbers of students since it moved to Oklahoma City has surely proved the wisdom of it. And also that old mansion wasn't adapted for a college building. Here in Oklahoma City, the buildings have been erected according to a long-range plan for the best academic and educational purposes. So the college never would have done what it's done already if it had stayed at Bartlesville. With all respect to the good people there that loved it and hate to see it leave.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add about the move down here?
No, it was a vision of faith on the part of George Benson and James Obey, and they're to be commended for having the faith to push out and to get this study started and finally get the board to agree. It's a financial job to move locations for a school.
Okay, Dr. McCord, can you tell us a few things about your family life, just to mention those?
I appreciate you're asking me. After a preacher had stayed in our home for a couple of weeks, he said, "Hugo, you should it out, marry yourself." And I think he's exactly right about it. And the Lord blessed our union with a son. But it seemed that, at least for a while, it'd be the only child we ought to have, because my wife developed tuberculosis, was put to bed. But after she recovered, we adopted a little girl. And so she's been the delight of our life too, that boy and that girl. And he's given us 2 grandchildren, and she's given us 4. All of them granddaughters so far, but I'd take another one of those. So they've made us very happy.
Okay, can you tell us, do you have any activities outside of the Christian college here now?
I've been the preacher for the Ridgecrest Church in Midwest City for the last 15 years, and I'm retiring as of this year, in July.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay, well, I think that'll be quite enough, and thank you, Dr. McCord, for your interview.
Thank you for asking.